Okay, let's dive right in. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stripping away all the myths and looking at the raw, fascinating reality of how prehistoric humans actually learned to survive. We're going to break down the real mechanics of prehistoric childhood and explore the rigorous training that went into mastering one of humanity's absolute oldest survival skills.
So, have you ever wondered what a prehistoric child's very first hunt was really like? Because I can almost guarantee you, the image that just popped into your head is probably completely wrong. We all have these preconceived notions of early human history, but as we're about to see, the true process of learning back in the Ice Age was way more structured and frankly, far more fascinating than we ever give it credit for.
On one hand, we have Hollywood's version. You know the scene, right? A lone young boy, spear in hand, bravely facing off against a giant mammoth while the entire tribe watches in dramatic silence. One perfect throw, a victorious roar, and suddenly he's an adult. It makes for fantastic cinema. But archaeology and anthropology tell a totally different story. The truth is, a first hunt was never a single heroic day. It was the mathematical sum of years of observation, practicing on tiny game, and crucially, experiencing frequent, totally expected failure.
Section 1. Nature as the classroom. Learning without schools.
Picture being 10 years old in this environment. There were no schools, no books, no phones to stare at, and definitely no supermarkets. The wilderness was literally the only classroom available, and the experienced hunters of your tribe were your only teachers. Every single day's lesson could literally determine whether your family was going to eat tomorrow. Life was tough, and a prehistoric child woke up every single day completely immersed in a natural world where every sound, every shift in the breeze, and every broken branch carried critical meaning.
So how did they actually learn? Well, unlike kids today, they weren't separated from adult life. From a really early age, they just tagged along with parents and older relatives while they gathered food or collected firewood. They were constantly observing. They'd watch how footprints changed after a heavy rain. They paid close attention to how animals naturally moved with the wind. They studied how the adults could stay perfectly, unbelievably silent for hours on end. You know, these weren't formal lessons where everyone sat down with a chalkboard. Learning happened continuously through pure, unadulterated observation.
And obviously, they didn't just hand a toddler a full-size spear on day one. Instead, they played games, but these games had highly specific purposes. Throwing small sticks at tree stumps, that developed critical hand-eye coordination. Trying to hit leaves blowing in the wind, that sharpened their aim and precision. Challenging friends to sneak up on each other silently, that built the exact patience and stealth needed for tracking. Without even realizing it, childhood playtime was essentially a disguised, highly effective survival boot camp.
Section 2. Reading the invisible language. The art of tracking.
You see, one of the greatest hunting skills didn't actually involve throwing a weapon at all. It was all about seeing what everyone else completely missed. A young hunter had to train their eyes to spot a single, slightly bent blade of grass. Then they had to connect that to fresh hoof prints, notice the freshly broken twigs at waist height, and identify tiny, still wet drops of mud. Experienced hunters read these physical clues like words in a book, and kids spent years just trying to master this invisible language of the forest floor. And the level of detail they could extract is just staggering. By the age many modern children are just starting elementary school, prehistoric kids could look at those clues and decode an entire story. They could tell exactly which animal species had passed by, precisely how long ago it was there, the specific direction it was heading, and even its emotional state, like whether the animal was calm and grazing or terrified and running from a predator. This data was the absolute foundation of everything that followed.
Section 3. Mentors and meaningful mistakes. The messy middle.
Because observing is one thing, but actually doing is a whole different beast. When it was finally time for the first real hunts, they definitely didn't go after apex predators. They targeted small, significantly less dangerous game. We're talking birds, rabbits, lizards, small mammals. It provided a much safer environment to get those valuable reps in. But here's the harsh reality of hunting small, lightning-fast game. Most attempts completely failed. Animals escaped, shots missed wildly, and tracks just vanished into the brush.
And that brings us to the most crucial reality of this phase. Failure wasn't embarrassing, it was entirely expected. Every single missed shot and every lost track became just another lesson. Young hunters were guided by veterans who would sometimes explain the mistake, or maybe just tap a footprint with their stick. Over time, the kid would start predicting what their mentor was going to say before they even heard it. And that was the sign that the experience was finally taking root.
This lifelong progression wasn't some overnight transformation. It started in early childhood with pure observation, while just tagging along with the adults. It transitioned into middle childhood with that disguised play and those messy, error-filled small game hunts. And only then, usually reaching well into adolescence, did they achieve their first successful real hunt. It was this incredibly slow, deliberate compounding of knowledge over years.
Section 4. The first real hunt, the culmination of lessons.
So, after years of failures and practice, the kid is finally stronger. Their aim is tight, their footsteps are incredibly quiet. Then an opportunity presents itself. A small deer is grazing nearby. The young hunter checks the wind, it stays favorable. They draw on all those years of games and botched rabbit hunts to remain absolutely ice-cold calm. They read the terrain, they predict the animal's movement, and let the spear fly. And this time, it finally strikes.
That single moment, no luck involved. It definitely wasn't a sudden burst of heroic Hollywood inspiration. It was the direct, undeniable result of thousands of tiny lessons, failures, and observations stacking up over many, many years. The natural world was the teacher, and the student had just aced their ultimate exam.
But the victory went far beyond just securing dinner for the night. A successful hunt fundamentally changed this young person's status. They earned the deep trust and respect of their entire tribe. The older hunters treated them differently. They were handed new responsibilities, shifting from someone who was merely watching and practicing to someone who was actively contributing to the group's survival. The community celebrated, not just because they had food, but because a new, capable hunter had officially joined the ranks.
We've seen that real hunters were shaped over years of observation, immense patience, and expected failure. So it begs the question, if nature was humanity's greatest classroom and true learning literally required thousands of small, messy failures, what are we missing in our modern lives by expecting instant success? Think about how you handle the messy middle of your own learning journeys. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it gives you a fresh perspective on the patience it takes to truly master a skill.